Good morning. My name is Cameron Parrott, and this is my partner, Sam Sussachuk, and together we are Vote Smart.
So just a little bit of background about ourselves. I'm a senior at Orono High School. I'm honored to be the captain of the basketball team, as well as the sports editor for our school newspaper, The Spartan Speaks. Last year in DECA, I was a state finalist in both of my events, and next year I will be attending and playing basketball at the University of Chicago.
So I've had the honor of being the National Honor Society president at Orono High School, in addition to being the captain of our debate team. Last year at DECA, I was also a state finalist in my events, and as of 2 days ago, I'm thrilled to announce that I've received my early acceptance into Northwestern University in Chicago.
Vote Smart. We live in the age of information. Go online and you can compare the calories in a smoothie from Caribou to the smoothie from Starbucks. You can juxtapose the statistics from the 87 twins to those of the 2015 twins.
Information is abundant, but what is still lacking is a way for voters to effectively and easily compare candidates' stances on relevant issues. This is where Vote Smart comes in. According to the U.S. Census, only 44% of eligible voters aged 18 through 44 voted in our last 2012 presidential election, only 44%.
During midterms elections, these numbers dropped to just under 30%. This segment of the voting population is undoubtedly the most connected with a plethora of information at their fingertips, yet they're the least active during elections.
So our product is a smartphone app that allows voters to compare candidates' stances on issues and see how their beliefs align with them.
The format is simple. We have both users and candidates will fill out a profile that consists of a list of preset questions. These preset questions will be vetted by a panel of political experts. Once these questions are answered, candidates will then be matched to users side by side to see based on how their beliefs align with each other.
So normally at the national level, voters get spun, and at the local level, there's just a simple lack of information. And Vote Smart effectively solves these issues by quickly and easily educating the voters.
So we see Vote Smart being a viable platform because it's mobile and it's straightforward, it's simple. This will change how voters get educated during elections.
So the majority of the population walks into the voting booth knowing who they're going to vote for president. They may even know the majority of the congressmen they're going to vote for, but after that, it becomes a long list of unknown names and question marks.
And this leads to voters either not voting for those positions, or especially at midterms, the majority of the voters don't even go out to the polls. We see Vote Smart solving this issue by quickly and effectively educating voters.
So what are the problems that we're actually addressing? So as a group here of hardworking adults, you probably know that politics are time-consuming, and not all voters are able to spend the hours required to watch all the debates or to sift through the political press releases in order to find the information crucial to them making an educated decision. This is important because there's a lack of direct information from candidates, and as I said earlier, voters aren't able to sift through the press releases to see how a candidate actually feels regarding certain issues. And at the local level, there's a lack of non-biased media coverage just for all around for the local candidates. And all in all, these problems combine to form poor voter turnout.
So this is just a graph of presidential elections, and it shows, one, a downturn in voter turnout, especially at the 18 to 24-year-old range and the 25 to 44-year-old range, which is where we see Vote Smart catching on and really affecting.
And then here's another graph that compares the presidential elections at the top with the midterm voter turnout, which is significantly lower.
So how we're solving this. As I've touched on, the essential part of Vote Smart is the user to candidate matching. It's easy to complete, it's a list of questions, and it's direct and organized information. For every elected position, all the candidates will be lined up side by side, so you can see how you compare and how you match with one candidate versus the other. And it's information direct from the candidates. There's no news spin, it's not for ratings, it's straight information, a yes or no question and a yes or no answer. Which we like to stress is the nonpartisan format. We don't care who you vote for as long as you're voting.
So who's actually going to be using VoteSmart?
What campaigns target is what we call the middle 70%. You have 15% of voters who are always going to vote Republican and 15% of voters who are always going to vote Democratic. But you have that middle 70% who may not know who they align with, may not know who to vote for, and this is what wins elections and swings elections for campaigns. You know, these middle 70% are working adults. They have lives and they have jobs and they have stuff to do outside of politics. And we see this really targeting local elections, which is where the lack of media coverage is. You don't have televised debates at the local level. There's not a whole lot about it. So we see the information coming out there.
So what do we offer? Currently, there's no other platform like this in existence. You will not be able to go onto your Android or smartphone and find an application that allows you to effectively and easily compare candidate stances and see how they align with your own beliefs. And as Seth stressed earlier, we have the nonpartisan format. The nonpartisan format. We don't care who you're voting for as long as you're voting. And all in all, VoteSmart is an efficient way for people to research as voters.
So how do we reach users? We have two distinct groups of consumers. We have our users who will use it for free, and our customers who will be paying. The users are the voters, the people. It will be on the App Store as a free application. We're not looking to make money off of them. We just want to get information in their hands. The customers are the candidates. We'll touch on a little later in the presentation our essentially our subscription structure, but we will charge candidates a fee to get their information out on this app as well. We have a meeting set up with the Minnesota Secretary of State within the next week to get information about how users and candidates will use our product.
So monetizing the app. So one of our obvious expenses is the development of the app. And as for revenue, we're planning on having a tiered revenue cost structure because we don't want to have those candidates who are looking to be elected for the school board paying the same amount as, let's say, Eric Paulson. And so we're going to get our revenue, we're generating our revenue from two streams, one being the candidate profiles, and then we also foresee advertisements as being an important revenue stream in the future.
So this is a model for Eden Prairie. If we were to launch our MVP in Eden Prairie, this is what it would look like. Eden Prairie has 47,000 eligible voters, so say we only got 10% of the population, we'd still be getting close to 5,000 voters on our app in a single city. So you see we have a tiered structure from the national, state, county, city, and school, and the total revenue at the bottom from just Eden Prairie.
Lastly, I just want to say thank you. As Eric said earlier, we will be presenting at our regional DECA conference in late January. And so some final things that we're hoping to get from all of you are any of your questions, concerns, or feedback.
Just leave it there.
We're going to use one of these microphones for questions, and if you guys wouldn't mind just sharing that. Questions, comments? We'll start with Beth.
Have you, first of all, awesome job. Really good, thank you. And this is so exciting. I think it's absolutely needed, so thank you for doing the kind of research and work. I've heard of Civic Eagle. Have you heard of that organization? They were part of the Minnesota Cup, and I think it's a similar product.
Okay.
And so, yeah, if you could speak to that, if you've heard of it. If not, no worries, but great job.
Well, we haven't heard of Civic Eagle. We'll obviously go and do research on it now. But
They're also a woman that comes to this.
what?
They're a woman that comes to
Okay. Yeah, but we'll definitely go research that and get more information on that.
Great job. I have a couple questions. One, let's say I get the app, are you looking at, is my information going to be confidential?
How we would treat that is your address, your name, things like that will be, but what we want to give the candidates is demographic information because how we see this hooking them in is they spend thousands of dollars on polls every year, and if they could go to VoteSmart and see, okay, here's the demographic I'm really hitting, here's where I'm not, that saves them a lot of money, and it's an attraction to our app. So age, race, gender won't necessarily be released to the public, but candidates will have access to how that is affecting them.
Thank you. And then, can I give a
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
All right.
Absolutely.
Couple things. In speaking ums and ahs and looking, focus on one person.
Mm-hmm.
You, both of you have, it's liquid gold. I'm looking up there going, oh my God, these guys have so much information. And you're prepared. You're solid. You look great. Don't look down. Find one person and speak to them, and that'll speak to the whole group.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Thank you.
The other thing, silence is really powerful. Going from one to another, the ums, the ahs, and all of that. Don't worry about it. Be silent. Think about what you're going to say next. Larger print.
Oh.
Okay. All right. All right.
I have cheaters. I can't see your name. Also, graphics.
Mhm.
One of the things I saw a lot of factual information where if you did a circle or pie chart or you added and then you brought pieces in with a PowerPoint, it would just pop, really scream at me, make a big difference rather than trying to read this and listen to it at the same time. Visual, auditory, kinesthetic, all that world. If you give that visual, you don't have to have somebody reading it. They can still hear you and see that and capture that information.
Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely.
We'll definitely change that.
Absolutely.
Okay.
First off, great job. This is actually a space that I think is really important, especially at the local level, because that's where most policy is taking place and people don't understand. So you give the information to the candidates, right, the demographic information.
Mhm.
What's to keep them from skewing their profile inside of your application in order to educate, I guess, people to vote for them if that's not it? What fail-safes do you have to keep them from augmenting their data?
Yeah, that's a really interesting concern. So in the future, we plan on having a consistency rating that we would give out to the candidates. So regarding, like, if a candidate says that they do support, let's say, like the Viking Stadium, but then they later vote against the Viking Stadium, that would affect their consistency later rating. That would affect their consistency rating later. So in our minimum viable product, we wouldn't have that, but we definitely foresee that as a future change.
I think one of the other things I can speak to is that if they do, so what we would have is, I don't know if you saw on our kind of the example, they would have a space to say, put their rationale. We're not in charge of what they put on their profile. We're not going to say you can't do that. It's their, it's their message, it's their platform. So if they want to change it to hit a certain demographic, then that's up to them. And I mean, we don't want to say, no, you can't write this there because that's not really representative of what you are. Voters will see that with the consistency rating, and they'll just see that because that's how, if it's different from how the candidate acts, people will see that.
And I have one more question. Your target is that middle 70%, right? And you're looking to educate voters in that middle and get them out to vote. If 60% of the younger generation do not vote, how are you going to get that market to care at all? Because if I care, I'm probably going to download this, that's for sure. But if I don't care, I'm probably not looking for a voting application or a voting education application. So what are you going to do to really get out there and get people to understand that this is important and this is going to help you make the right decisions when you go out there and vote?
Yeah, so that's another really important concern that we have to be worried about. But Sam and I, is what we've experienced this year with like the rush of information. We both have really busy lives. And so sometimes it's hard for us to focus and try and educate ourselves on what that government is currently doing. So when we're marketing this to that generation, we're going to have to stress the time-effective way that VoteSmart is. Because if they can be educated really quickly as of who they're going to vote for, that will greatly appeal to them in their busy lives.
And I think people want to vote, and it's just necessarily getting educated and being able to learn quickly and effectively. I mean, if people don't want to vote and they're dead set on not voting, then we can't change that. But I think a lot of people want to, but they don't want to spend hours every night trying to educate themselves.
Actually, I was going to ask that same question, it's one of many questions. So I too applaud you for even caring enough that you would think of this in the first place, because I think it is something that's really needed. Now, conspiracy theorists would say that there are some candidates out there that don't want you to go vote, and there's some candidates out there that really want everybody to go vote. So you might get pushback from candidates or even resistance. Some candidates may just ignore it, but some candidates may push back or resist. So have you thought about that at all?
Yeah, I mean, we've thought about that to some extent. So say Bob Smith and Linda Jones are two examples up here. If Bob Smith is one of those candidates who doesn't want to educate the voters as to what he wants to do or what he believes in, then we would simply have Linda Jones' information and say Bob Smith refused to.
Chose not to.
Or chose not to put his information out here. So I think just in doing that, the voters are going to be like, well, why isn't he showing us what he wants to do? And so it's almost going to harm Bob Smith's chance of being elected.
I love that you are locking candidates into yes or no questions. And I also know that some of the best interviewers have a tough time locking candidates into yes or no questions. So is the incentive of demographic information enough for candidates to take the time and to answer questions that they can't see?
I think that there's a combination of things that will attract them to do this and lock them into doing our yes or no format. One is especially the demographic information. That's gold to candidates. We talked to the chief of staff for Eric Paulson. We met with her, and she told us that this kind of information at a reduced rate like we would have it is gold to a campaign. I think one of the things that will get them to do it is the fact that they do have, a place to say this is why. So they're not, it's not just yes or no. And if Bob Smith and Linda Jones here both voted yes, you go in there and you say, okay, why? What different reasons? We also have considered doing in the future after we've launched the MVP a sliding scale type of question where we would have that in combination with the yes or no. So, how much do you support Bill X 1 to 10? And candidates, there's a little more leniency and a little more fluidity with that type of a question.
And also, like we said at the beginning, there's a difference between politics at the local level and politics at the national level. Because at the national level, a lot of them want to spin the voters and almost confuse them. Whereas at the local level, the blatant lack of information, the candidates just want to get their information out.
Two quick things. One, promoting yourself as a young people company. And that's Civic Eagle's website. I don't know, who knows if they were in high school, probably not. That would be a great way to promote yourself as different. The other thing is to tie something to have people come to this. I heard that question earlier. Absentee ballots. We're in such a busy society now. People do absentee ballots online. This would be the perfect way to convince the government to let you link in so that you have a link down there to go to an absentee ballot.
Oh, that's really interesting. That's something we haven't considered.
Hi, nice app, nice idea. My concern is, in the instance of Derek Paulson, he's got background, he's got money, he's got backing, $3,000 for him to join the deal, no problem. His opponent is trying to figure out how to do this, doesn't have $3,000. Is that going to be something where the rich get richer and the poor just have to muddle along? Number two is, what about stuff like judges who probably aren't going to pop to the $3,000, nobody has a clue. And the other question is, when the judge comes in, you're not going to be able to see the voting record. How do you know they're not just filling in full of BS because that's what the polls tell them they're supposed to say?
Well, we definitely do have the concern about kind of having it being a bidding contest. We think that $3,000, especially for a national campaign, is reasonable because if you look at how much they're paying to reach voters, reach those 47,000 voters, or even only 5,000 voters, it's a fraction of a cent to reach each voter. So we think that the cost is fair, especially if you get down to the local levels, it's only about $200 or $300. Whoops, there we go. So, I mean, $20 for a school board candidate is very affordable. Those are just, I mean, parents and everyday people. And the city level is only $100, so we think that it's priced really fairly. To speak on, the judges, you have record of their rulings and you have record of how they rule. That's something we would definitely explore because that's a unique type of position. But we think that having that on there and knowing who you're voting for judge, which is a really underrepresented in the media type of position, is essential. So we would have that included in the county and state level.
My concern is not the $3,000. My concern is if Eric Paulson pays the $3,000 and the other guy doesn't, can you become a promotion house for Eric Paulson?
That's a good point.
Yeah, that is a good point, and that's one of the reasons why our costs are so low, because we actually talked to one of the congressmen who just last year spent $22,000 on one poll. And so obviously he can afford the $3,000, and so we're not going to charge these candidates like $20,000 to join this app, because that would obviously isolate all of the lesser known and less powerful candidates. And so that's one of the reasons why our costs are so fractional, in order to attract a variety of the candidates.
Could you look at having the government pay for it?
Yep, that actually is something that we've considered, because currently there are two different sources that actually do a lot of the polling for the Democrats and for the Republicans in government.
So you have the House Election Committee, let's say the House Election Committee for Minnesota runs a lot of polling, the Democratic and the Republican. So that's who, and we're going to meet with the Secretary of State within the next week. That's who we would talk to and kind of say, how would you endorse this? Is there any way we could make this, party-wide for both parties?
I think the biggest question I had watching it was, how are you going to get actual voters to hear about your app? Like, that's the biggest challenge of any app, is how do you get users? And then just one idea that you could possibly try it as, I know as a voter, I'm searching for places that have stuff. So if you maybe part of your pitch had how you pull all this data and these words like who to vote for in Coon Rapids city level. It's like I ran for city council and $100 totally affordable. You spend more than that on business cards. So I think as a national campaign, they're asking for $3,000 donations on the envelope slips. So I think it's totally affordable.
Well, one of the ways to publicize the app, like you touched on, was we've made contact with political reporters around the Twin Cities area, and they've expressed interest in doing stories on it. I think word of mouth, especially with apps, is a really powerful marketing tool. I tell my friends all the time when I find a cool app or I think there's something they'd like. So I think that's a really powerful way to market it.
And then when we spoke with Eric Paulson's chief of staff, we asked her similar questions, how would be the best way to market this to the voters, and she was saying that advertisements, especially through Google Ads, would be a really effective way for voters to hear about this app.
And also getting involved with an organization like Rock the Vote, or a voting advocacy organization, and having them publicize it would be a way to get word out about it.
I love the idea. I've been looking for something like this for a long time. You mentioned, I think you had mentioned before that the younger voters, that's like the lowest percentile.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that also kind of the most sought after audience from politicians?
Mm-hmm.
Well, so the younger crowd is kind of the target market, it seems. Well, one quick comment is maybe on the graph slide, maybe emphasize that, if that really is your target market.
Mm-hmm.
Would that information, I guess, be more valuable to the candidates? Because if that's really who they're going for, millennials and younger people, that your information would really be that much more valuable, and that's why politicians would really be, I guess, more after supporting your app. So I think it would be really good that way, to maybe use that as your target market, utilize social media, stuff like that.
That's another one.
If you really start off with, the younger generation, because I think it would be a lot easier adopted by them versus, potentially the older crowd that doesn't like apps. But yeah, that'd be a great way to go.
Exactly, yeah. And currently, a lot of the polling that candidates choose done through landlines. And as landlines become more and more extinct, this demographic is often like undercovered. And so having this demographic information is going to be very valuable to the candidates.
It kind of occurs to me too that a potential way to make money on this is that the local newspapers might be interested in this, because they are really looking for ways to survive right now in the first place. And the way they're going to survive is by interacting with the community, which is why they all have their own websites. And they all do the candidate forums, you know, and this and that. And it would be a great way, obviously, to get rapid use of the product. It's, I think potentially local newspapers might be interested in even branding, you know, the app to their own company, that kind of thing. And so maybe it's a different way to think about how you want to make money on this.
Okay, absolutely.
And one piece of feedback, oh, okay. I'll go to you first.
I have a question. Does the app in your current model have the information for past voting for incumbents? And if it doesn't, I think that would have some value possibly in your long-term strategy. So not just seeing what they say, yes or no to the question, but also seeing how they've acted and how they've voted.
Yeah, so what Cami touched on was the consistency rating, which we've definitely looked at, and we love it as an idea because it's something that we would see utilizing. Is they can say what they want when they respond, but what really matters is if they get elected, and as they've been elected, you know, how they performed. So I think that's definitely something that we would explore seriously, is having an incumbent record within our MVP, or if not in the MVP, very shortly afterwards.
And one piece of feedback I give lots of people who pitch is really build out that team, that board of advisors, and it gives, I find it gives legitimacy to a lot of companies, especially ones that have high growth potential. No entrepreneur who starts a business knows everything about how to run and grow their business, so it helps for people to see that there's other people surrounding you who also deeply believe in it enough that they're going to want to invest their time and their energy and their mentorship to it. And then I would definitely put that into a slide deck, because you have potential to be a national application that's going to be used, and people want to see that there's more people involved in it.
That's definitely, like Cami touched on with development, that's neither of our fortes. We're not in that field whatsoever. So that's a place where we would definitely need help, is getting an actual product.
And then the last question I always ask is, after this conversation, what can this community do to help you?
I think you guys have provided us with really, really good feedback, which will definitely look to change part of our business model and definitely our presentation, so thank you for that.
Any sort of feedback, any sort of ideas, we're definitely in a really early stage, and we want this thing to be tailored to the people who want to use it and who need it. So any feedback, ideas, anything of that nature, we would love it.
Or as we move down the road after development, we'll be looking for test users. So if any of you are interested in anything like that, please come talk to us after.
Great, thank you so much.
Thank you.